Hey everyone! Today I have with me Alexa West. She is a female entrepreneur, digital nomad, and best-selling author of the travel book series, The Solo Girls Travel Guide. Through her writing, Alexa is giving women the resources and confidence to travel the world solo, no matter their age, budget, or travel experience. And I know this firsthand because the reason I know Alexa is because I got her book before I went to Thailand. Welcome to the show, Alexa.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, so what did you imagine your career path being during college at UW?
Oh gosh. So I had some experience doing humanitarian work abroad in high school. And so I always imagined that that's what I was going to do after college, that I was going to move abroad and I was going to live in some countries and help as many people as I could. But the problem was I was broke as a joke. And I was like, how do I do that? How is that possible? So once I found, I started looking around, how can I be this humanitarian that I want to be? How can I help people? How can I move abroad? I found the Peace Corps. Are you familiar with the Peace Corps?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So, and I think there are students out there that are familiar. And for those that aren't, I mean, listen up, Alexa's about to tell you about it, but there's an application process, right? I mean, it's not just anyone can be part of the Peace Corps.
No, it's not just knock at the door and you're in. Back when I was applying for the Peace Corps, which is a 2-year program sponsored by the US government, back in the OG days, you would just apply. You have no say in where you're going or what you're doing. And I think it was an average of an 8-month wait. So you go in, you do an interview, you do all these medical tests. It's really intense. And then you just wait for them to say whether or not you're accepted. And so when I got that letter in the mail that I was accepted, they were going to send me to Bulgaria. It was just a life changer. And the great thing about it was the Peace Corps pays for everything. It's a volunteer program, so you don't make tons of cash. But they pay for your flights, your medical, your housing, your stipend. So you have all of this. And that's just really what got me started.
So you knew that you wanted to get involved with humanitarian efforts. What was your major in college?
Sociology. So I was all about cultures.
Okay. And you were passionate about travel. And you said, how can I combine these two interests together? And that's where the Peace Corps came in.
Absolutely. Actually, I think a key part of it was a key part of this story that's missing is I was in a relationship with a boy. We were in college. He was definitely a boy. I was just so in love with him. We had been dating since high school, and I thought, we were going to get married. And so when I found the Peace Corps and I found that it was a 2-year program, I was like, oh, I can't do this. I was trying to really, really create what my future was going to look like and try and have too much control over it. So when he broke up with me, the tears lasted 3 hours. And then I was like, I know what I'm going to do. And I marched myself down to that office. It was just the way it was supposed to be, really my passion. And in those moments where you just think everything is falling apart in your life, your passion kind of has that little voice. It's hey, what about me? What about me? And then I was like, you're right. Why am I sad about this? I get to go do what I'm supposed to do now. It just propelled me into this world of living abroad. The Peace Corps, they call it the toughest job you'll ever love. And it really, really was, because I was one of the youngest ones in the program. Most people were in their 30s, and I was fresh out of college. I had just turned 22 when I got on a plane and was hurled into Eastern Europe, living in a village where no one spoke English. It was really, really intense. And I wouldn't take it back for anything.
Wow. I'd love to hear more about what that was like. Were you nervous at first? How long were you there for? What did a day in your life look like in Bulgaria?
I was really nervous, but the nice thing about the Peace Corps is that you have all these other people that have never done this either. So it's a big group of people. You're kind of all in it together. There's a 3-month training process. So I lived in this small village in Bulgaria with 5 other American volunteers, and we spent the first 3 months going into an intense language program. So now I speak Bulgarian, which is not so useful, but it's really fun for me. And we learned about just how to adapt and cope in a new community, how to connect with locals, how to, just kind of like learn the norms. And then the scary part is then you get your site assignment and they separate your whole comfort circle and they send you to your own towns. And yeah, it was tough, but it was great. I was teaching and I was also working in an orphanage. So my days were long. I would get up and I would work in a high school from like 6 a.m. to 12. And then I would go over to what they call the Dom za Deca, which is just like the house for children whose parents, they all have parents, but their parents struggle with addiction or, they just don't have the resources to raise them. So I was there at the programs for 2 years. I was there for a year and a half. It was also my first lesson in government bureaucracy and red tape. So while I would absolutely do it again, and I would tell any young person that kind of has that feeling in them to do it again, I also learned that I don't want to work for a government agency that has red tape while I'm trying to do humanitarian efforts. So that was fine. I did that for a year and a half. And then when I was done, I was like, I'm not ready to go home yet. And so my next adventure was in South Korea teaching English. So it just kind of kept going.
Okay. Well, it sounds like everything that you learned in Bulgaria was really transferable, learning the language skills, how to connect with the community, how to make an impact. And then it looks like you took that and decided to move on, but away from, the red tape, as you were saying.
Right. I was just, I still wanted to help. I was liking, to teach, and I still wanted to do that. So basically I was still broke after the Peace Corps because it's a volunteer program, but I still had all that like passion inside of me and I wanted to put it somewhere. So I did a really great job in my 20s of finding opportunities that would pay me to do what I love to do. So the Peace Corps paid for my airfare and all these opportunities, this language programs. In South Korea, when you teach English in South Korea, they do the same. They pay for your airfare, they pay for your apartment, they gave you a really nice salary. And I did that for 2 years in South Korea and I loved every second of it. It was incredible. It was amazing. I definitely grew up from like little girl to adult in Bulgaria. And in South Korea, I just kind of like found who I was in how I like to give what's in my heart and like in my passion. How do I give it to other people? It was amazing. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I love the way you phrase that, find someone to pay you to do what you love. I mean, that is just another way of saying passion career. You created it yourself. You identified what it was you love. You took the parts of it that you loved from your first experience and then created your next one. Mm-hmm. Well, so today you're traveling and you're writing. You're a published author. And that's actually how we found each other because I felt really helped by your guide to Thailand. And I gave you a shout out in my article about my trip. Mm-hmm. And when I was starting this podcast, I thought of you because I feel like you're a perfect example of someone who found a passion. And I mean, you're doing something so cool. You're traveling the world, you're writing about it, and you're making it happen. So how does one do that? If there's listeners out there that are like, I want to travel the world. I love to write. I want to be like Alexa. How does one do that? Because it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's not as easy as it sounds. If you had told me when I was in college, like, Lexi, in 10 years, you're going to be this international travel writer living in Asia and all this fancy
getting business class tickets for free.
Yes. And free hotels. I would be like, how did that happen? That's incredible. And really it wasn't one thing. It was just taking small steps every year towards the direction I wanted to go to. Like now that I'm sitting here with you, I am really living my dream. Like this is my dream come true, but I didn't know it exactly. I didn't know that this is my dream. I didn't have that trajectory. Rather, I knew kind of a direction that I wanted to go to. Like I'm a writer just by nature. I wanted to express myself with writing. I love people. I love to give and help. And I wanted to live abroad. And so what I did was I took little stones every year, little stepping stones, and I just pointed them in a general direction of where I wanted to go. And I'd get on the next stone and I would point that in the next general direction and just kind of like took those baby steps. And that's what the Peace Corps was. That was what teaching in South Korea was. once I realized that teaching, like I wanted to transition more just into full-time writing, I moved to South America and Mexico and spent a year in between. And I was just house sitting, another opportunity that I didn't have to go into an office. I had free rent. And then I was able to, I just said to myself, like, I really, really want to focus all my energy and attention into writing. How can I do that? And that's what I did there. So that's how I started the book series. I started house sitting and putting all my time and energy into writing. And yeah, people kept asking me, like, how do you travel like this? How, when I come to Thailand, what can I do? I was giving advice all the time. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a book. I'm going to house sit. I'm going to write a book. I didn't know if anyone would read the book at all, but I was like, I'm just going to write it anyways and see what happens. Like, I'm just going to write it from like my passion, like write it for my friends, write it for like my friends of friends, write it for girls that I know. And it did well.
Well, it sounds like you saw the need. I mean, you heard the need. People were coming to you and asking you for this advice. And you're like, wouldn't that be great if I could just give them my book?
Absolutely. That's literally exactly what it was people were asking for advice and itineraries. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write everything down that I know from that perspective of like, it's kind of scary moving abroad. I wrote something that I wish that I had. I wish I had that book the first time I went to Thailand. And when you're writing A, from your passion, and B, towards an actual need rather than trying to create a market, but knowing that there's a market there, those things come together really beautifully. And it did.
Yeah. Well, and I think also you're saying like, you house that and you just focus on your writing. Like you were doing that one thing. They say when you put your energy towards one thing and making it happen, that's when you can really make that daily progress and see it through.
Right.
Because a lot of people are like, I want to write a book, and maybe they have the first couple chapters and it gets neglected. So how do you see it through? It's that focus. And I love also what you said about that metaphor of the stepping stones, like every step and setting that next intention. That's what this podcast is all about, is setting an intentional career journey. And sometimes we don't even realize it, but we're just kind of going through the motions. We're just kind of like, I'm applying for a job because I'm supposed to. This is what people around me are telling me. This is what I should do or could do, or these are the things, the opportunities I see in front of me, versus listening within and like with you, following your gut on something that you love and following that step.
Right. And I also think it's really important to not let your budget define your dreams. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to be a child psychologist, instead of getting a job at Target that's going to provide you with a paycheck and that maybe later you'll get to your dream, try and angle yourself in a way that maybe get a job at a daycare, or starting your own nanny service, or doing some kind of intern work. Because there's always a way. Like if you say right now, I want to do this, but I can't afford it. I want to do this, but you got to get creative. You got to get creative in the way that you're going to get yourself there. Because there are opportunities waiting. And the more creative you are, the less competition is in that creative alley. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And start that thread early, right? And then you can speak to those experiences when you do go for that bigger opportunity.
Exactly.
They're all connected. Wow. Okay. So describe a day in the life of what it's like being a travel author. So like, what was your day like today? You're in Bangkok currently.
A day like today. Well, today I was just waiting for you, but so here's.
Oh, right. It's your morning.
I was so excited.
Yesterday.
It's 9:30 in the morning. So I was just like waking up so excited to talk to you actually. So writing a book, being a writer is just so unbalanced, but in a balanced way. So there's 3 phases of my process of writing a book. And the first is the really fun phase, which is the travel research phase. So if I'm writing a book about Bali, I'll move to Bali and I'll really just dedicate my time into getting to know everything I can. So that's, hiring a driver and waking up in the morning and going on a tour around the island and going to waterfalls and learning how not to get scammed and picking up some of the language and asking locals to like find me like the best place for pork ribs, and then going home and writing notes about it and doing it again. So that's just like the really, really fun part. And it sounds like really easy, but it's a lot of work too, because I'm thinking, I want to cover every detail that someone would want to know. The second phase is writing the book. And Oh man, that's hard work, but I love it. But that's like waking up at 7 in the morning and I have a head full of all these ideas and like to-do lists, and I will write from like 7 in the morning to 1 in the morning, and like the sun goes up and it comes down and I have no idea what day it is, and it's just a lot of coffee and pizza. And then there's a third day that's kind of in between those phases and after, which is now, which is like the admin days, and it's just kind of like taking care of my business and myself, and it's, you know, working on a new website or kind of just like recentering and waking up when I need to. It's a really unbalanced life, but I wouldn't change it for anything. And that's what I like.
Fun. It sounds creative and fun and unexpected and exciting.
Every day is different, and it is exciting, and I love it so much. But there's also like it's like trying to walk in a new pair of shoes sometimes too, like to learn how to balance your time, because it's all on you. You know, you don't have a schedule, which is the nice part, but you also, you know, don't have anyone like leading you in which direction. So it's a lot on you, but it gets easier over time.
Yeah. Well, so what was the scariest part about getting your book out there in the beginning?
Criticism. I was so worried, you know, I was really worried. I'm usually just like a private person in just sharing like my most inner feelings and thoughts, and the book really is like a reflection of who I am, and it's just every thought in my head. So when you put that much vulnerability out on the line to a world of strangers, you're not sure what's going to come back. And I have been just like overwhelmed with positive feedback, and I've made, you included, like I've made so many friends, and just the beautiful thing is I was so afraid of what people would think. And that was actually the most beautiful part, was that I found a lot of women like me that wanted the same thing as me. So I took a risk. It was a scary risk, but it paid off. Like, I'm just so grateful for the community that it's given me. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I went on this incredible bike tour in Bangkok. I met this tour guide named Danny, and I just found all these really neat, you know, pockets and neighborhoods and alleyways. I saw a dog and a bird who were best friends, like things that you just wouldn't see or find had I not been on this bicycle tour. And, you know, tasted these, what were they? They were like soaked in oil, and they were bananas, fried bananas. Okay. They were so good. Just like, eating street meat, you know, just things that you wouldn't have found on your own in these pockets and alleyways of Bangkok had I not taken that bike tour. So thank you for that experience. Like your words and your book have a ripple effect. I think that's really neat.
It's really neat. It's really cool. It's really great. I'm glad to hear that you liked that tour. I loved that tour too.
So you overcame your fear of putting yourself out there, getting your words out there, possibly receiving some negative criticism, but realizing that the positive overweighed it, because I think people are really impressed with, you know, the fact that you did put yourself out there. You know, not everyone can do that. And it's a courageous thing to get published, to be published, and to share your story. So I think most people admire that. Well, so tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion. Dun, dun, dun. My favorite question.
You ready? So I'm just going to go right into it. This is dried squid in a bag.
Oh, gross.
It is so gross, but you know that I have to eat this stuff. Like, I will travel for food. Like, I will travel for food. I will eat the weirdest stuff. My passion is traveling and food. One of my friends and I, we took a trip when we were living in South Korea. We bought tickets. We bought a flight to Japan for 18 hours just to go eat sushi. Like, we got on a plane to Japan just to go eat sushi. And these things, like, they're kind of horrendous, but at the same time, like, that's the fun of traveling, is you find the weirdest stuff. I love it.
You don't recommend these gross snacks to your readers, right?
I'll never tell. You have to try it for yourself. To each his own. You have to try it.
Okay. Well, I wonder, you know, I'm sure people ask you this a lot, but I'm kind of wondering, like, what's one of your craziest travel stories? What's like a wrong turn that you made, or something weird that happened that was unexpected?
There are so many. Like, there's the time that I bailed this guy out of jail here in Bangkok. I had to get a tuk-tuk driver off the street and pay him to help me bribe this jail to let me in the jail cells to feed this random kid. That's a crazy story, but a fun one. It was actually like really fun for everyone. Even the jail guards, they loved it.
What did he do? Why was he in jail?
He was drinking, and I think it just got like a little bit rowdy, and they were just holding him in jail for a couple days. That's a crazy one. Another one that maybe isn't as scary is also involving police. I was in South Korea with two of my friends. We went on like a weekend kayaking trip, and on the way back, we went into the train station, and we could read Korean at the time. So we're reading Korean and we're trying to get to where we're going. Some girl helps us and we're like, we want to go here. And she's like, yeah, that's correct. So we buy these tickets, we get on the bus. We're on this bus. This is before smartphones, by the way, like traveling like OG style with the little teep, teep, teep phones. And
the Zoolander phone?
Yes, these little you have to like click 3 times on the 3 to get the letter like E or something.
I had that when I was abroad in Italy. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it was like gave me flashbacks to my trip in Venice where we were like, a train was canceled and we were like on another train that was, and we had our tickets that weren't counting for that train or something. Like we stayed on it just to get back to our destination, but we knew we didn't have the right ticket. Like, and we were so fearful.
Yeah, you're like being like rebels on the train. Yeah, it was a different time traveling with those little phones. But so we're on this train or on this bus. No one speaks English. We are like, we're definitely going the wrong way. We're definitely going the wrong way. It's getting dark. It's been like 4 hours. We keep like asking the bus driver, and he's like, yeah, sit down. We get to this little town at like 7 o'clock at night in the middle of nowhere. And the bus driver's like, last stop. We're the last ones on the bus. And he's like, get off the bus. And we're like, oh my God, we get off. There's like, it feels like the wild, wild west. Like it's just a quiet town with like one restaurant. And there's a police officer eating soup. And we ask him if he can help us. And he's like, after I eat my soup, I'll help you. So we just like sat there waiting. Long story short, he figured out our problem. He put us in the back of the police car, turned on the sirens, takes us down the freeway an hour. And we were like, could that be? No. We see another police car with its sirens. They take us out, put us in the next police car. We drive again. We see another police car with sirens. They take us out, put us in. So we got this like royal police escort like all the way home. Police officers. South Korea is so safe, and the people there are so wonderful that like that only could have happened in South Korea. But it was like it went from like us crying and being afraid to being like, this is the best day ever. I love it.
Yeah, that's some VIP service right there. You end up in the wrong town and the police will like escort you speed style to your to the correct location. That's amazing.
So cool. Yeah.
So you really demystify what it's like to travel as a woman, what solo travel is like. And you share, how to be smart, how to be safe in your book. And I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. I think as a woman, we have to think differently. We just do.
Oh, yeah.
And I say in my books, I put like a little intro in there because I have men that'll be like, why for women? Like, why? Like with that kind of like, why? I'm just like, because we are women and life is just different for us. But the great news is like, it doesn't mean we can't travel. Before I took my first trip with the Peace Corps, I had so many friends from home being like, this is really dangerous. Like, do you know what you're doing? Like, are you sure you want to do this? And once I started traveling, I realized like, it's not that scary. It's really, really not. It's scary if you're alone and if you have no idea what's happening or going on around you. But if you know one person, or if you have like, if what I basically aim to do is show everyone that I've done it. Like the things I write about, like I've been there, I can approve this for you. Like if you know that another girl can do it, like you can do it too. Like I'm not going to lead you to like the back alleys of Turkey, which I make those mistakes so you don't have to. But like us women, we just have to pay a little bit more attention to our safety, but that doesn't mean we can't go. It doesn't mean we can't go.
Yeah. And, you heard those words of like fear and maybe parents saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that, it's too risky to travel on your own. But you took it with a grain of salt and you went with your gut.
Right.
and you followed your passion.
Yeah, I did. I really did. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. Well, so how does one make a living doing this, right? That's of course the golden question. I'm sure you get it a lot.
Yeah.
And you made it, and not everyone can make it doing this exact path. But
Mm.
what would you say helped you be successful at it?
Oh man. So I really think the time that I took off to do house sitting, to just focus all of my attention, and I realized that's not something that everyone can do, or that everyone has the luxury of doing, just, quitting everything. But I did, and I was able to just study the industry. Like before I was writing books, I was helping other authors market their books. And I was like, I sell my books on Amazon. And so I was getting into copywriting on Amazon, like figuring out like kind of behind the scenes before I stepped into my own limelight. And I didn't necessarily plan on publishing a book once I did that. But I think I just really studied my market and the platforms on which I was publishing. And yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of it is dedication, but a little bit of it is luck as well.
Well, I think
Like,
that's really neat. Let's not even go to the luck part. Like a lot of people wouldn't even have thought to say, okay, I want to publish, I want to be on Amazon. How do I reach out to someone else that's on Amazon and ask them if I can help them with their marketing?
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I just started finding jobs in that niche of that. It's not really, I'm a writer, I can do copywriting. And I was like, let me just find that niche. And for a while, me and my best friend, we were like the top two copywriters for Amazon. And it was really cool. And then we're like, okay, well, we've done this, like, let's go in the forefront and do that. And so then I started finding people in the publishing industry, and really, like, I just surrounded myself with some amazing mentors. And there's a lot of people you can find on YouTube. There's this guy named Ameka, and he just does like everything publishing. And I just started following all his videos, following all of his stuff. And yeah, and eventually just kind of like followed in his footsteps, but in my own way.
Yeah. Well, I had a student ask me, they're like, I love that when you interview people and they mention a mentor of theirs, like I'm noticing that trend, but how do they get the mentor, right? So
Mhm.
can you break that down? What did that look like? This guy,
Oh
I
my
mean, you
God.
looked up to, you're watching all his videos. How did
Yeah,
you make
yeah.
that ask?
So this is like this is kind of a roundabout way. And I'm not really sure like how this will translate to our audience, but so this guy named Mecca, he lives in Mexico. He has a family down there, and he is all about like the self-publishing world. So I started watching his videos, and my best friend started watching his videos, and we started watching them together. It was actually like my best friend who eventually reached out to Mecca. And so my best friend he's now become one of his students. So the mentor started mentoring my best friend, and then my best friend kind of started mentoring me. So we created like this chain of mentoring, if that makes sense. But truly, like, without having these mentors in this line of publishing, I don't know if I could have done it. I wouldn't have been able to get published so quickly. I don't know if I would have been able to find the right audiences so quickly. Maybe I would have done it on my own, but it would have taken a long time and a lot of mistakes. So yeah, like, find someone that is doing something like you and follow what they're doing. And there's no shame in that whatsoever. There's no shame in saying like, I've learned from this person. Like, we can have teachers out of the classroom, and that's just what that is.
Yeah. Well, and making the ask, reaching out to that person and showing that you've made that time investment. You've watched their videos, you've read their books, and you
Right.
care and you're inspired. I mean, flattery will get you everywhere.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And reading as well. Like, reading is massive. Like, reading all like the greatest copywriters and all these types of things. Yeah, it's helped. It's strange talking to you because I haven't done this much reflection. I've just been like putting my head down and kind of like bulldozing through every barrier that I've had to do. And so to sit back and be like, oh, that's what I did. Right. Right. I remember now,
Yeah, you forget what it was like to not know. And now,
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, like I know how to be in the right category on Amazon. I know how to get my book cover made. I know how to lay out my book in InDesign. But when you're first starting that, you're like, I don't have a clue how to make my book Kindle ready.
I really didn't. It was so stressful. As we were talking about this, I can remember the apartment that I had in Bangkok, like what I was eating during that time, and like the late nights, and like so stressful, and just trying to figure out, how do I get the cover made? How do I get it formatted? Like, it wasn't just write a book and like it's magically published. It was a lot of work. But now, fast forwarding, I published my first book in November 2018. Now it's February 2019. Fast forward now, it's just a smooth process. Like, I have it down now. But I really like committed to the process. And I always like, when I'm talking about like this career, for me, just like my inner talk that I haven't really like shared out loud before, I tell myself to like marry what I love, like marry this job, because it's so hard. And it's almost, I almost feel like if a mountain is so high, not that many people are going to climb it, but if I can be one of those people to climb it, like there's more things at the top for me to have. So like marrying what I love, like no matter how hard it is, like it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be rewarding. There's going to be months where you just feel like, why am I even like doing this? But at the end of the day, like if you just stick with what you love, it's almost like the longer you do it, the better you become. It's worth it. It's just worth it. If you, instead of like picking like, 5 things that you love and transitioning over those within 5 years, if you just stuck to one thing, imagine the progress you could make just sticking to one thing in 5 years. It's amazing. And it's those habits and like that dedication is something that we're not really used to in 2019. We're just so used to like picking up a new book, watching a new show, going to a new place. But if you just like marry what you love and just dedicate yourself to one thing, imagine how amazing it could grow. And that's what's happened.
Yeah, that mastery of it. Well, so can you share, what that was like to get your first book sale or to see the, the book selling? What did that feel like?
Oh my gosh, it was so exciting because I didn't really, my first book was the Solo Girls Travel Guide Bangkok. And I didn't really like share it with my friends and family. I didn't really tell anyone that I was doing this. So my first sales were genuine sales. They were like genuinely from strangers. And that was so exciting. But I think the most exciting part was I started putting my Instagram in there and people reaching out to me and just being like, even with questions or with feedback or just being like, this has really helped me. And I get those messages still today. And it like, I don't even have words. Like it just means the world to me when people that I don't even know can relate to me like we've known each other for years. Like that is the best feeling in the world.
Oh, that's so cool. It makes me feel like I'm inspired right now just hearing you talk about how much I want to finish my book. I'm working on the book right now for Find Your Passion Career, but it's that feeling that I get when I talk with students and I hear, I get the email the next day about, how they're now sparked and inspired, or someone that's heard the podcast and feels inspired to go and apply for that other opportunity that they knew within their gut that they wanted to go after, but weren't going after.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost doesn't feel real, but it's just like, that's the best gift that you can ever receive. I mean, sure, to give, but to receive is just to know that like, that not only are you helping someone, but it's just like that bridging of gaps between people, like that we are more similar and we can help each other more than we know. It's just really cool. And I've made so many friends as well. Like these people that write me, they're my friends now. It's just amazing. And like meeting you, it's great.
That's so cool. Yeah, you just sparked something else that you were saying earlier, just about how it really is safe. I think it's important to note that when you do actually travel, you realize how many good people are out there. And you also meet people from all around the world. Just spending time in an airport, I feel like it's just an international experience. Even though you're just experiencing one country, you're meeting all the other travelers that are coming to that country and all people speaking so many different languages. It just opens your world up to the rest of the world. And
it really does. Yeah.
Until you travel, you don't fully get that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think that like most of the people that I know abroad, like I have tons of Thai friends but most of my friends are like British or German or, you just meet people from all over the world because you meet people that are doing something like you. Like once you step out into like what you want to do, you step towards the direction of people that are like you, people that are also curious. And that's what I love about travel too, is that it's not just the country you're going to, it's everyone else that's also interested in that country. It's really cool.
Yeah. You found your people, you found your team.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so what career advice do you have for college students today? So go back to your days at University of Washington. Think back to when you were the sociology major.
Uh-huh. I think kind of just like to reiterate like what I said before is that um, for me, my theme of like what's really helped me was finding opportunities that were going to pay me to do what I wanted to do. Because I know back as like a broke college student, like I really thought that that was going to limit me, but instead I just found ways to make that work for me. Like don't think just because your bank account is like beyond empty that that you're stuck at home for 2 years working a job that you don't love. Don't think that that's your only option. And as well, like people will say like, I have student loans, I have car loans, XYZ. I have so many friends that I met in South Korea that they moved to South Korea to pay off their student loans. So one of my friends, Lauren, she wrote an article that went like viral in like the business world, that she went to South Korea with $20,000 in student loans and she paid it all off. There are opportunities out there for you. Just get creative, get really creative. And again, you don't have to know exactly where you're going, but take a little step. Just point yourself in a general direction and take the first step that you can. Like look for any step that is in that direction. Take the first step that you can towards that. No matter like, don't make this a chess game. Like don't think like, how is it going to play out? Work with what you have, and get creative, find the resources because they're out there. They are out there. There's so many ways to move abroad. And if you're looking to do something that like I'm doing, there's volunteer programs, there's house sitting, there's teaching jobs. Even if you're not a teacher, I was not a certified teacher. And in South Korea, if you have, a degree in something that interests you, yeah, like you can find a job for this. Also, getting a degree was like absolutely the only way I could have done this. Peace Corps requires a degree and teaching requires a degree. So stay in school, kids. That's what I think too.
Her parting message to everyone, stay in school.
Stay in school, guys. Yeah.
Well, so whether you're in school or whether you've graduated already, I think that everyone can take a lesson from your book, which is, and your not your actual book, but also from your actual book, but from your experiences. It's not that, just overnight you were getting airlines to sponsor your trips and hotels to sponsor your stays. It didn't just happen like that, right? You started out following your passion, going in that direction by getting involved with the Peace Corps. You took these steps and every step got you closer and closer to your goal of being a travel writer and now having all these incredible opportunities. Well, so I'd like to encourage everyone listening today to, one, I'd really like to see if you can get someone to pay you to do what you love to do. What an interesting way of framing that, right? So think about something you love to do and see if there's some way that you can turn that into a hustle, some way that someone will pay you to do that thing. And then I want you to take some steps or just that first step in the direction of the thing that you love. Make that first step today. What can you do today to go closer towards that step? If it's researching something in your industry, finding that mentor, making the ask, and make that first step today. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Alexa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, can you share with everyone how they can read your book and how they can travel abroad?
Sure. So my books are available on Amazon.com. You can just search Alexa West Travel, or you can search the Solo Girls Travel Guide. By the way, I have a lot of men that read my books as well. So although it's written from my perspective as a girl, it's really just informational and clean. And, these travel guides are meant to be not super overwhelming. It's not a 5-hour read. It's just real information that you can take on your trip that's going to help you. I am also currently, as we speak, launching the sologirlstravelguide.com, which is going to have all of the tips and resources that you need to get going. I'm going to do vlogs and blogs. And I also do like trip planning services. So if you are just overwhelmed and are like, I don't know where to start, reach out to me and we'll figure it out. And even if you're not traveling yet, and if you don't know what you're doing in your life, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. It's CoLexi, KOHLEXI, and say hi. Yeah.
That play on Koh Lanta, which was one of my favorites.
You got it. Yeah. Koh means island in Thailand.
Yeah. Relaxed beach. That was such an incredible experience.
I'm so glad.
Well, so thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you guys for listening and for tuning in. If you have any questions for future guests, email me at amanda@findyourpassioncareer.com. Thank you guys for downloading and subscribing to the podcast. And if you enjoy and you're feeling inspired, please leave a review. And we're signing off. Bye, everyone.